What was it? No, it was just, no, I had a thought.
Okay.
Well, the other thing I'll say that to me, you have to be a certain person to. I mean, the fact that they did the civil rights stuff on the show is one thing, but to be so William Shatner's like the white, right, Jackie Robinson, right? He has this decision to make about whether or not he's going to do this on television. It'll be the first time it's ever been done, and I'd like to think that as he lays awake at night, that he doesn't take that history is about to change lightly, and maybe that's me blowing up William Shatner larger than life, because for me, until my wife wrote a book, he was my favorite author. I read Star Trek Memories. I read every book in the Tech series. Right, I've watched every Priceline commercial.
Have you seen Free Enterprise?
Right?
Have you seen Free Enterprise?
I don't think so.
The movie Free Enterprise?
No.
Starring William Shatner as Bill Shatner.
Oh.
It's about two Hollywood 30-somethings. It's Trekkers meets...
Well, you had me at William Shatner.
No,
So.
It's Trekkers meets Swingers.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's very James Kirk.
I don't know why that was the thing that triggered it.
Like Swingers, yeah. I saw that.
It's the influence that William Shatner as Captain Kirk had on two 30-something kids in Hollywood. They were writers and directors and producers, and what it's like to be a geek adult in the 90s.
And, there's a story about that, the first kiss
Yeah.
that I heard, that the producers got a little nervous as it was written, and their first thought was they'd have Spock kiss her because he's an alien and it won't be so upsetting.
Yep.
And William Shatner said, I'm James T. Kirk. I'm kissing her. Yeah, exactly. But he says,
how many women did he make out with during the?
Exactly. Yeah. It just wouldn't be right for anyone else to do this but me. So I'm doing it.
Just so we don't forget that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess all I have to do is type in William Shatner and Swingers, right? And I
And
No,
that's
Swingers won't get it. That'll get you
Something else?
different tables. Little one not in the room.
Right.
Well, and Star Trek is also responsible for creating the slash subgenre of fan fiction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the show was off the air for so long that in order to keep it alive, it had to exist in books, which I think is something really unique to both Star Trek and Star Wars, that I don't know of any other fandoms that have been so kept alive while we've been waiting around for smart creative people to put something back in front of us.
Well, and the publishers also, not just the fan fiction, but I really think that this was one of the first times when, besides the short stories, you start getting these novelizations, these novels, not directly from the plot, but taking the characters. And
the first one.
Yeah,
Spock
and
must die.
Spock Must Die, yes. I have that sitting on my shelf. I decided that I'd only bring one representative. Not the whole library. It would be, tacky.
We haven't heard much from that end of the table in a
Yeah,
while.
I know.
Does anyone remember the cartoon series?
Oh, the animated series?
I was talking about that the other day, yeah.
Which is also short. I think that was only 2 years.
Yeah, it was really short.
So one of the things I always think about Star Wars, what do you guys think of the newest movies and what they do for the genre?
New movies?
I think they're
New movies.
flipping
I
amazing.
know. I liked the first one a great deal, and I was completely okay that they decided to make it a different time.
Oh, right, the alternate timeline.
The alternate timeline, fine. To me, that gave me the idea that they could tell these stories in a new way, and then they came up with that dreadful Wrath of Khan thing.
Yeah.
And my gosh, that was so disappointing.
I once tried to make a bet with somebody.
Yeah.
I think it was just for $10 that I could write a screenplay better than that one.
I wouldn't take.
Any Star Trek fan to take me up on
I
it.
wouldn't take that
I don't know
bet.
if you know either, but the guy who's directing, I believe, the next one is the guy who did the Fast and the Furious movies.
Oh, fantastic.
And
Yeah.
I've read that, was just, that's not what Star Trek is about. If
Oh.
you want to go see, like, flashy war things in space, go watch Star Wars.
Right.
That's what that is.
And that's the funny thing is,
And-
that J.J. Abrams, first he was handed the keys to Star Trek. Now he's being handed the keys to Star Trek. Here's what I want to know.
Star
If he's going
Wars.
to turn Star Trek into Star Wars, what's he going to turn Star Wars into?
Star Trek?
No, I really doubt that.
Yeah, no, it was
I
sort
was
of.
so happy when I heard that J.J. Abrams had gotten hired to do
Right.
Star Wars, because I thought, yes, maybe they're finally going to get someone in who, like, really gets Star Trek and what Star Trek is about and the philosophy behind it. And
Selling
then
tickets and
after
selling
that, it was
toys?
just like, really?
Well,
Although
that's
he's
the
the
thing, the
the
movies.
co-writer.
Yeah,
on
that I am excited
That,
about.
I can't remember the other co-writer, but Simon Pegg,
Uh-huh.
Yes.
who
Oh
is,
my
who was
God.
co-writer of the Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially the third film in that felt more like Star Trek than The
Paul,
Darkness
yeah.
did.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
But Simon Pegg is brilliant.
And he's geeky and gets it.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's been
That
famous
too.
Since his childhood. Where he said he was terrified of the alien Baylock and behind the.
But are the new movies Star Trek? Or are they just laying a skin over something else?
I mean, like, I thought they were kind of fun, but I didn't really feel like it was Star Trek.
Yeah, like they're great action adventure movies.
I
you know
mean,
what
there's a lot of
They're
fun
beautiful to
banter in there
watch.
between,
Yeah,
like, Uhura.
Well, and like I say, I
Like-
thought the first one was still Star Trek, and the second one.
Well, so this kind of goes back
Yeah.
to like
Yeah.
the whole defense of
Well, you
the
have to
classics.
realize
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy sort of passed the baton from.
Right, yeah.
And he said, okay, here, he said that in interviews, that he was sort of like, okay, you guys can now do this. And now I'm hearing that William Shatner is gonna be in the next one.
Really?
I think
I've heard the
they
rumor.
were-
Boy, I sure hope so.
Wow.
I'd be happy if he hit 100. I'd
Another.
keep that guy around as long as whatever. I think keeping him alive is driving medical advances.
You were,
Good job.
What were you gonna? You were gonna.
yeah,
I
maybe
mean,
you're
it's-
saying something?
It's sort of interesting. Like, I mean, I was a next generation girl. Like, that was what I grew up with. And the only time I saw the original series was either the movies or when they were on reruns for some marathon.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
whatever. So it's like I had this very spotty kind of education in the first
Right, yeah.
series. And then, God bless Netflix. Like, the day they
I think he did. I think he
Yeah.
literally. Yeah.
I just like sat down as we came in. I'm like, I am watching Star Trek. Get out. Get out. And but like really going back and watching all of them now, like after having watched everything else, and
Yeah.
including the movies,
Yeah.
after, and then going back to the very beginning, it's absolutely fascinating how different Star Trek was. Season 1.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just unbelievable. And
Yeah.
I think the movies kind of play a little bit more off of where all the characters ended up than where
Yeah,
they
it
started.
started.
Sure.
Yes,
And
yeah.
so, like, I mean, because it really, like, Kirk is so professional and so kind of by the book in the first season, and all of a sudden, I'm like, man, he went through a big arc to get, like, all the way.
That guy will do anything
Let's remember
now.
what happened to Kirk. In the course of 2 years, his brother died. He fell in love how many times and had them just die on him. He went through how many relationships?
Right.
He went through how many different traumatic experiences? The one short story I never wrote was the mental capacity hearing of Jean-Luc Picard. Because look at what that poor guy went through in his 7 years. He got his brain turned out inside and out
He
half a
became a
dozen
Borg.
times. He was Borgified. He was playing he lived an entire lifetime. He lived his entire lifetime in another culture because someone stuck a thing in his head.
Yeah.
And yet no one thought, hey, Jean-Luc, let's sit you down on a couch. Let's check you out.
And they even had a counselor on that ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole series of Star Trek PTSD.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Yes.
and
that he was okay. She could sense that, and therefore.
Yeah.
my favorite series was actually Deep Space Nine because it was there was a real complication with that, and when they fought their war, there were consequences.
Well,
And it actually seemed to speak to me a lot.
Well, I don't think Deep Space Nine could have been as good without TNG to lay the groundwork.
Oh,
They
yeah,
laid the
yeah,
groundwork
yeah.
of the
Yeah.
Bajorans,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Cardassians.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
not to say anything that.
Oh, no, yeah.
But But I think that Deep Space Nine was really a fulfillment of a lot of things. I'm actually doing a rewatch of it on Netflix because yay Netflix.
Speaking of the
It's been
rewatch,
several hours since I've watched any Deep Space.
Are you okay? Do you need a drink?
Do you need a paper?
how many of you have seen the remastered the original series remasters?
I've seen episodes of it.
I've watched them all.
Yeah,
It's brilliant.
yeah.
I've
They-
seen some of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've watched. I had a little time in the schedule, and I had a copy from a friend. I got to rewatch all of them.
Uh-huh.
Is that from 2 to 6 a.m.?
Something like that. But it was like, I've got to say, I highly recommend it, and I wish George Lucas had seen what they did. All they did was go in, clean it up.
Yeah.
They didn't re-edit, recut. They had to redo
Oh.
some of the things, but it was very much it was restoration. It wasn't
Yeah.
re-editing. It's, oh, I want to retell the story. They didn't
Yeah.
do any of that,
Yeah.
which drives me nuts.
You know-
Because you can't find the.
What about the?
Yeah.
Once he releases them, they're not solely his anymore.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, they.
It's
There
a
is-
shared experience among how many million people?
Well,
What about the director's cut of the motion picture?
the first movie, the first one.
The original.
Yeah,
Yeah, they put a
yeah.
director's cut.
I don't think I
remember.
saw it.
I don't remember
think
which one I've
saw it.
seen.
'Cause I remember
Yeah.
when I saw that, I
Yeah.
ended up actually thinking, they ended up kind of changing scenes and all that.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna get that with the director's cut.
Yeah.
But when I saw
Did
that,
it made
I
it
ended
more
up thinking
coherent?
that, okay, this is what George Lucas needs to have seen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that George Lucas needs to like.
Now, this is not the bash Star Wars.
Well, no, and I'm on the Star Wars panel, so I will be saying kind things about. But the reason that, okay, so Jar Jar Binks was kind of like a debacle, but when you look at what's really wrong with episode 2 of Star Wars, it's their dialogue is so insanely horrible that anybody else should have written. And I think the reason why Star Trek has remained so relevant for so long is, I'm looking here for ringtones, right? And I'm scrolling through, and it's like half of it is just quotes from people from the episodes of the series. And
Well,
there was
who were the authors? I mean, think about it. D.C. Fontana.
David Gerald.
Theodore Sturgeon.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So come on. No wonder
Well,
they had good stories.
And also, let's remember, the 1960s and 70s was kind of a golden age of science fiction in that, I remember I interviewed Terry Brooks many years ago in the early 90s, and he grew up in a time when he basically said, I read all the science fiction. And that was doable.
yeah,
No longer.
Yeah, you can't
Not
read
so
all
much.
the science fiction.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a press just to read all the Hugo nominees.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then you have, it's one of those things of, we need someone who knows the science fiction stuff. Where's that Ellison guy? Let's call him up. I mean, John Scalzi was a consultant on Stargate SGU.
Universe.
Universe.
Yeah. Universe. Yeah.
Liked that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's it's interesting. It's certainly a cultural phenomenon.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an interesting fact about the Star Trek, the movie, the very first one, because there's such a fight to resurrect Star Trek, the original cast.
Oh, yeah.
Movie made, that some of the people who were putting out fanzines in the 70s were invited to be in the crowd scene in the opening scene of that movie.
Well,
They were cut, but a lot of them did.
and letter writing has been a part of the Star Trek past in terms of when something's about to die. I mean, Enterprise was saved for another season
I thought the
because
fans killed that.
Please
Stop, please stop.
But I mean, besides the theme song, I think it's
I think the theme song is the only good thing about
What?
it.
I have
Oh.
to say, I know the theme song is much loathed, But the montage, the visual montage.
sure.
Yeah, it was cool.
was
I agree.
amazing.
Yeah.
And every time Ellen Shepherd turned and smiled, my heart went pit, pit, pit.
Yeah.
I also did a rewatch of Enterprise,
Yeah.
front to back.
Yeah.
I had never watched it. I borrowed Dave McCarty's copies and I watched all of it.
Uh-huh.
When Enterprise was good, it was as good as any Star
Any
Trek.
Star
show.
Trek, yeah.
When it was bad,
It was.
it was time travel. It was awful. It was darn near unwatchable, and it made horrible leaps when it was trying to bridge between First Contact and the Next Generation, or I'm sorry, the original series. It was horrible because they had things like first episode. You know, it was just it didn't. You know, it was a brilliant premise, poorly executed.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's where I really love the idea of the new movie. Hotshot captain comes aboard an established crew. What are their names? Denise? Hand Yakutas 50 grand, tell us what facts we need. Because they wrote the freaking book on it. They could have made that movie and fit it in the canon perfectly. There was no reason to go and say, yeah, we don't want to read those. Let's just make it new. Because there was no internal logic. You know, the ship being built on the planet. No. The parts were built on the planet, they assembled it in space. And you're not going to make a cadet from the Naval Academy on probation the commander of a vessel, any vessel,
Any vessel.
in any
But he's that
fictional
good.
universe.
He's that good, though.
Did they sort of lapse in time 3 years later because his
No, he was,
was like
he
the
was,
war.
he was on probation.
Yeah.
For cheating.
Yeah.
For cheating, yeah.
The chief medical officer, although why someone that far out of the it's one of those things where it's just, the internal logic was completely lacking. That's where my problem with the movie, and the fact that the bridge looked like an Apple store, and they literally filmed it in a brewery. Neither of them looked right.
And the inside of the ship was way bigger than the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the TARDIS.
Well, I was gonna say, that precedent was set many years ago.
Let's just make,
It's an even further alternate universe than we thought.
I mean, a ship that big,
You need
being
a
on the planet and
sunrise,
then
too.
taking off from the planet.
Yeah,
That
but
was
lens flares would just kill you.
For me, the argument of like how close to the original or how well did we do this compared to that, to me it's almost counterproductive in that I went, like we all went so long without Star Wars, right, and having to wait for anything that even Jar Jar Binks was great. Right? This is at Comedy Sports, they would give me the groaner foul for that. Okay. So, like to me, look, if somebody produces a movie and they put it under a title, then I think it should be done well, and I think that there should be enough there that everybody jumps on board. And for me, it would be hard to look at the two latest Star Trek movies and not say that those are good movies. And to me, what has proved to be successful lately in terms of keeping something on a screen is Guardians of the Galaxy, like witty banter.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the reason that Star Trek is so memorable and the reason that everybody was so surprised that they could put Guardians of the Galaxy out there because it didn't have anyone with a cape in it was because, right?
Okay.
As human beings, we want to see each other. We want to feel what each other feels. We want to communicate a shared experience. And I think when you communicate through dialogue effectively, that's when we fall in love. That's when we say, damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a, right? And we could say that for the next 50 years, right? So to me, they did that. Captain Kirk was good, and he said good stuff, and the people on the bridge said, I mean, it's full of well-executed dialogue.
the dialogue was well executed, it was not well written.
Oh, wow.
They hit the fan service of all the funny lines. I'm not a this, I'm a doctor, I'm not a blank. They had the guy playing Spock say some of the things.
Yeah.
They had Scotty, because that's what we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
The movie was a fan service. Guardians of the Galaxy created interesting characters. It's basically the usual suspects writ space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas Star Trek is, it's iconic. Yeah, thank you. Star Trek is iconic,
Yeah.
and they hit the notes they needed to hit for the fan service.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought tickets because it was Star Trek.
Sure.
Yep.
Because we haven't seen it in so long, we were just
Well, and you
dying.
know,
Right.
even,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
even the movies,
Exactly.
I'm forgetting the name of it already, but the last of the Star Trek movies with the Next Generation crew.
Nemesis.
Nemesis. I went to see it because of what it was, and I sort of went, oh, really? But it was nice to see old friends.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly.
It got a
That's
lot
true.
of bad press. but
Yeah.
Overall, it was, because they all knew this was it.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
all knew this, whether it's good or bad, they've all said, some cast members.
yeah, this was it,
Data
yeah,
wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
Or if he does, that he's gonna make them B4.
yeah,
You know, Worf was thinking about not coming back, Michael Dorn, you know,
yeah. But it was just good to see old friends.
Right.
And
And that's
I
part-
think
that's
that's
a lot of
the
what
fan
this is.
service, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the fan service part.
I would love to see, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, I would love to see a Star Trek movie though that isn't just about fighting in space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I'm getting really sick of with
Yeah.
the movies.
But
is
Well,
yeah,
that's-
and-
Star
you see
Trek's
the
not
space
supposed to
action
be
and all
about,
that.
you know, I mean, like, oh yeah, we have all this CGI and special effects and stuff, and we can have a big budget, and okay, that's really great.
Well, and if you,
What's the story?
and if you
You
think
know, it's
back
not
to
really
the
what
various
it's-
series,
Mm-hmm.
very little of it was actually conflict in space.
Sure.
Right.
Even Deep Space Nine, which was a war setting, very little of it was of the war itself. It was of the consequences. Yeah, yeah.
Movies have to get the casual fan, not,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
us.
yeah.
And we're gonna go anyway. I went to see Nemesis twice. I don't know why.
You know, I actually have gone back and rewatched Nemesis. It's not bad. The problem is, it's got a lot of competition, and Insurrection was so very well done.
right.
Yeah.
That was great Star Trek.
And you also have to remember, when Nemesis came out, Harry Potter just came out the week after.
Mm.
One of the Harry Potter movies just came out right after.
That's an important context.
Yeah.
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 One thing,
Yeah.
when it came to like
Yeah.
the whole
Harry
idea of
Potter
fan
came
service
out
and
right
stuff,
after.
Yeah.
is
After.
one reason I really didn't care for Into
I remember
Darkness,
that.
even though like each scene was very well directed, you know, the dialogue and the acting were really well done. They were trying to give kind of that superficial level fan service, whereas really, when I go to see something Star Trek, what I'm looking for is ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And they kind of started to hint towards that, so like the first half hour I was kind of like, oh, this will be interesting where they go with this, and they didn't go anywhere.
And they didn't go, yeah,
Whereas like,
yeah,
you know, when you're talking Deep Space Nine, there's a lot of battles, but it's always, each battle is about,
about something, yeah.
And that goes back to what you were saying about,
Yeah.
what was it? You were talking about, one of
And
you two.
just, you know, you gotta at least have, if you're gonna have battles in space, you have to have some philosophy behind it, if it's
Yeah.
gonna be Star Trek. Otherwise, it's just space battles.
Do
I mean,
everything.
it's no different than Star Wars.
And I have to
It's-
say, I have to, for any sort of movie, a space movie or an action movie, if there isn't a story there, if it's just action and there's no story, I get bored.
Yeah, so do I.
Just action is boring.
There isn't a
To me.
character you care about.
There has to be somebody I care about, yeah.
I also, I'm curious what other people, everyone kind of thinks, because this has just like been on my mind a lot lately, and I think the new remakes are definitely kind of fit into this, where there's this like this trend towards darkness, no pun intended. With this
Yeah.
But this
Very
trend
dark.
towards very dark. I mean, we're
Yeah.
seeing it obviously in, you know, Superman and Batman, like all these different, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm
Even in
saying.
comic books now, it's all darkness.
Right,
now.
Yeah.
exactly.
It's the same thing. It's
And
Even in the Lego movie, it's all
But-
about the darkness.
Yeah.
No parents.
I
Darkness.
Come to
wonder.
the dark side.
I think it's actually about being part of a team in the Lego movie.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do
Everything's
with our
awesome.
society today, and it's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
a reflection on society today of things aren't necessarily that great right now.
So when you say dark, what do you mean?
No, I mean, I think
Evil.
there's like a pessimism, like this overarching pessimism in the movies, like where it's like there's just this like everything's kind of dark. I don't know how else to
Well, it's,
describe it. Like,
it's Into Darkness. If you just look at Into Darkness,
Right.
it is a dark military organization. It did not have any of the optimism
And
of the
that's- yeah.
Starfleet.
yes.
I mean,
Of the
Starfleet
original
was,
series.
was
Starfleet military
exploratory.
instead of exploration.
Right.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
But I know I as a fan am missing that optimism.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I mean, right now I feel so saturated with this sense of pessimism that I'm like, please, I need something that's has has some offensive
And that's where I
stuff.
think that's something that Guardians of the Galaxy tapped into.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Groot and Rocket Raccoon, still a better love story than Twilight.
Oh man.
Romance for eternity.
Props to you, my friend. Props to you.
I'm curious what the panel thinks about, and I've only seen a couple of them, the Star Trek episodes being made and broadcast on YouTube.
The fan episodes.
The fan episodes.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them.
Neither
so
have I.
don't know.
Seen them yet. I don't know if, is
I
anyone
have,
aware of?
Which ones are you talking about? The hidden
There's
The ones-
3 or 4 series of them.
Yeah.
There's
There's
a bunch of them out there.
There is one that I watched that was excellent. It's Star Trek Anaxar.
Oh, yes.
Anaxerar. It's a pre-original series. It's somewhere in between Enterprise and the original series.
They're building it.
And they write it from perspective of afterwards as a documentary of this great battle. It blew my mind.
Does anyone know about Star Trek Renegades?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I've seen trailers for it.
Yes, I've seen trailers for it. It's the
Yeah.
guy who was too,
A bunch of the Star Trek actors got together
Yeah.
and said, we want to make
Chekhov.
another Star Trek series and we want it to be real Star Trek. Like, go back to, the core Star Trek.
but they also are making it very dark.
Yes, it does look
Yeah,
dark.
it's
from
It's an
the-
alternate universe.
They have
Yeah.
to save the Federation from itself.
Yeah.
There's also, but David Gerald, who was a fan at DuckCon last year, if you're not following him on Facebook, I highly recommend it. He is a very smart man. If you like your politics liberal,
Gerald, who wrote the Star Trek
Yes,
books
yeah.
and the
Trouble
Seven
with
Evil
Troubles, yeah.
Trilogy.
he wrote that. He also wrote the novelization of TNG, the original, the pilot. Yeah, he wrote the pilot. He wrote the novelization of the pilot based on DC Fontana's script.
Yeah.
But he recommended to me, I forget which of them, but he's seen these new episodes. He's like, yeah, they get it. And it's hard to tell, if you're not looking at the actors' faces, which is which. And even then, you're like, wow, that was very Kirk.
Yeah.
So it's out there. There is some good stuff being made by the fans.
In,
Have to look for that.
in terms of lighter, and I get now the pessimism, right, is what.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what 2007 into 2011 for me is. I mean, the world almost blew up, and I don't know what it feels like to the average American. So I used to manage money, right up until I finally just sold all of the furniture to start touring with my wife for her books. I managed money, and so I saw the 2007 into March of 2009, and I remember what that felt like, and I also remember what it felt like in 2011 when the U.S. government had that brinkmanship where they were deciding whether or not they were going to pay the U.S. government bonds and default for the right. So to go from like AAA to
Default, possibly.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So and the S&P went down 24% in 4 days, and my life was never the same. So to me, like when you say like, oh, it's so dark, I'm like, well, I'm lucky that I I took the shade off the window, like.
But at the same time, like I feel like that's when I need the light. Like when you're at the darkest, you need something to cling on to pull yourself out of it. And it's like I don't need to wait around in there. I
think
just
I'm
need
predicting
to-
the future.
If the stuff we're getting is actually really all that dark in a story sense, or if it's just kind of they're putting gritty
True, yeah.
affectation on it,
Yeah.
and then as kind of a way to avoid actually
Dramatizing
putting
it.
in,
Grit versus substance.
Exactly.
If we make it gritty and dark, they won't notice that we didn't really put much effort into making it.
I think Utopia just doesn't sell very well right now, though.
And it might
There's-
not. I have to say my problem with a lot of this is that I don't necessarily have to like people in a book, but I have to somehow empathize with them. They have to touch something in me somewhere. And if it's just a bunch of, thugs, I'm just not interested.
I don't know, those looks can be interesting. They can be interesting,
They could be,
but they have to be written well.
They have to be written well.
Well, and I think
yeah.
Suicide Squad's going to attempt to do that,
Yeah.
right?
That'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they can do that.
Well-
I'd much rather read a Secret Six movie.
Well, me and my wife have been talking. So we're on tour all this year and next year. We're going to 45 conventions, And so I'm the marketing department, which means I get to take note of what's walking around, right? What do people have in their hands, and what are people wearing? And Harley Quinn is everywhere,
Yeah.
right?
I went to a Halloween party a couple years ago, and there were like 7 Harley Quinns, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? And there was one girl I didn't know who she was, and she was the girl from Underworld.
Yeah.
That was it. Everybody
Right.
was Harley Quinn. I was like,
Yeah.
did I step into some alternate reality? Like,
Well done, Paul Dini.
So I on Tumblr, I think it was Tumblr the other day. So I'm scrolling through my feed and I see this conversation between Black Canary and Harley Quinn, in which they're right, they're fighting each other,
No, yeah.
right, and then
I haven't seen it, I'm just thinking it's hilarious.
well, Black Canary turns around and throws up, and she's like, okay, we can go back to fighting now. She's like, wait, what? Wait, you just threw up? Are you? Oh, you are, aren't you? And she's like, no, let's get back to punching each other because I don't like where this is going. She's like, you're pregnant. You are freaking pregnant. I can't punch you now. The fight is over. And then they sit down and they start talking to each other. And the next thing you know, Harley is telling us that she has a son who's 4 years old, and the Joker can't know about him because if he knew about, and all of a sudden I thought, well, okay, so I finally have a reason to understand why. And I think that's what's happening to humanity is, like, the lines are becoming blurred. Like who's good and who's bad, and
Well, those lines have been being blurred
For a
since
long
the 70s.
time.
Oh.
With, Dirty Harry. He was the first, he was the first well-known anti-hero.
Oh, sure.
The guy who does bad things for all the right reasons. The Punisher, Wolverine, all of those characters.
Megamind.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's one of those things of, and that's interesting. It's, Malcolm Reynolds. That'll be tomorrow's panel. But it's, the shiny starship captain doesn't sell as well as the renegade thief or the guy, Star-Lord.
Yes.
The paragon of intelligence and diligence and studiousness that is Captain James T. Kirk.
Aside from his.
And
Kissing everyone.
the general trend right now is towards the, good guys, or at least, morally ambiguous guys who sort of end up good fighting the really bad system.
Right.
And,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's a comment on our culture today.
Yeah, I really appreciate. When
But
he
it's
called.
frequently always been there. The idea that life is ambiguous.
But even
is-
Star Trek's not utopian anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything out there that really is, just happy good?
Well, I don't think. I
Well,
guess.
there's My Little Pony.
Oh, so well done. Yes. Yes.
Touché.
Yeah. I'm gonna get a brony shirt for sure.
And don't hand me the brony thing. I got no trouble for it. You said positive and happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a
It's
7-year-old.
on
Oh, yeah.
non-Star Wars,
Well, I'm not sure that Star Trek ever was, a complete happy utopia ever, nor was it really meant to be, so much as that it was meant to be
But
better
humanity
than
Right.
where we were.
to-
Yeah.
They were still
Right.
trying to be.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that there was the episode of the people from the 20th century who'd been frozen and
Oh,
were
yeah.
found
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
the Enterprise, and
Oh.
money. What's this funny thing called money?
You guys are so primitive.
We're so beyond money now.
Yeah.
And that was one of the nice things about Deep Space Nine, platinum.
Well, and that was the Star Trek versus everyone else. It's the
Yeah.
Federation
Yeah.
versus everyone else.
Yeah.
And it was,
the utopia. Everything
Yeah.
else
Yeah.
was the
That's what.
Right.
Frankies were a very interesting commentary.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and that was, and it was, what I liked was, okay, let's put, that was one thing I liked about Voyager, was that they created an economy. They started putting need back into space travel. We don't have infinite energy. We don't have infinite anything.
Yeah.
We got what
Yeah.
we can carry.
Yeah.
So, it was, and I remember it stuck out. Ensign Kim. I ate Neelix's cooking for a month so I'd have the replicator rations to make a trombone.
Yeah.
And I thought that was brilliant,
Yeah.
in it creating that inner consistency of the world, and say,
Yep.
despite the fact that Neelix was, the comic relief, that I don't know they needed. Of all the franchises, I honestly say Voyager is one of the weakest, in my opinion.
But I liked that Voyager was, you were out there exploring again.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was something new. It was
Sure.
a chance to kind of start.
I mean, it did get kind of formulaic after a while. I
Yeah.
acknowledge, even like as someone who loves Voyager, that it had its weaknesses.
Yeah.
But I loved a lot of the characters, and especially the strong women.
Well, yeah,
It
and
was
as
awesome. And at the time, I was in high school. I was just deciding what I was going to do in life too.
And it was nice to see
it-
strong
it
women
really
because
influenced my
they
decision to
weren't
go into science.
much around.
well, and to think that Marvel just launched the first all-women superhero team, like, well, I mean, it's not even available. It's like May.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
3
2000
minutes from now.
Well, it's yeah. If it's Spaceballs, we could watch it in about 10 minutes on the monitor. But like it's 2015, and this is the first, right? And we are how many arguments do we have to have before Wonder Woman has a freaking movie? You know, like, and now it's like, oh, Gal Gadot, she's this or she's to that. It's like I'll just be happy to have Wonder Woman that has a movie that's where she's Wonder Woman, because I'm a raging feminist,
Let's
and
make a Wonder Woman where she's Wonder Woman and not Xena Princess Warrior.
Well, no, I think what we're missing is that, look, so Voyager wasn't the greatest Star Trek ever, but again, just like Captain Kirk having the first interracial kiss, to put a woman on the bridge and put her in control does something for every woman that watches it. And I think it's what's tough about not being able to have so much optimism. We're not there yet. Like in humanity, we can't figure out sexual orientation, and we can't figure out what do we do with women now that they wear pants and can run a company, right? It's like, well, damn, we got to rewrite everything that we thought that we knew about the world. And I think until we do that, it's just a bunch of confusion.
I mean, half of what you're going to hear when they do the Wonder Woman movie will be about what her outfit.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And is she too skinny, or how tall is an Amazon?
Is she wearing the thigh-high boots? Is she what?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
Which
not like-
outfit is she wearing from which comic book? And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of she's a woman, she kicked everyone else's ass, and we should all just go watch it and pay money to do it so they can make more movies about women.
I'd be happy if they did that. I'd be happy to watch that movie if they didn't make the comparison so obvious.
Oh.
With the brown leather outfit. It's the
Yeah.
brown leather bustier and spiked skirt that looks just like Xena.
Yeah.
That's
There
I'm not
was
saying
no
I'm not
comment
and
about
also
that.
it's also not a practical warrior's outfit.
The heels, that always fucking kills me,
Yeah.
man.
The
The
heels.
Running heels.
Yeah, running
Yes.
heels.
Ridiculous.
No.
Really walking
Fucking ass
heels.
Nobody. You don't see Superman wearing fucking heels.
Kirk.
Yeah, he
Kirk
does.
wore heels.
I noticed that.
Have you noticed?
Totally did. Yep.
I don't care about the cake, heels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to realize Wonder Woman is one of the major characters
Huge.
in DC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She is part of the Trinity.
Right.
Batman, Superman, and
And Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And she has been that way forever.
Yeah.
But it's hard to write the story.
Right.
She's got that. It's hard for Hollywood, and I'll admit I'm kind of glad Hollywood hasn't done it.
If they weren't going to do it
Because
well.
they're going to screw it up.
Yeah,
No, I agree.
if they made a bad Wonder Woman movie,
Yeah.
could it set things back?
Everything then would be toast, yeah.
Well, they made many bad Green Lantern movies, and we're still reading Green Lantern comic books. I mean, just because they screw it up.
But Hollywood might not try Wonder Woman again. They'll go,
Oh, right.
female superheroes.
Right,
themselves.
right.
Yeah.
And that's what I've
Rather
heard.
than them
Yeah.
That's
going,
why-
oh, we wrote that one wrong.
Right, yeah, we sucked. A bunch of dudes screwed this up on a movie about a woman. Big
How many
surprise.
bad comic book movies were there before Iron Man when they got it right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of bad movies.
Every
We live,
one of
yeah.
them.
Yeah.
We live in a golden age of geekery.
Well, and part of that is because what you love about Star Trek, that is what Marvel's doing. Like the Marvel
Oh,
Civil
I
War.
absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at Captain America.
Prior to Joss
versus
Whedon taking over the Marvel
Man of
universe,
Steel.
that was my that would have been my absolute dream, is to see Joss Whedon play Star Trek, because he knows
Oh my
how to
God.
write that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That's what makes the new Star
Yes.
Trek movie successful, is kind of the Joss Whedonization of them in the
Right.
dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely, and they
You
do
know,
have the witty dialogue.
Because there isn't
but-
much else to support them. They're cannibalizations, which Star Trek has a long history of doing. One of the first episodes of Next Generation
Was
a
a almost
cannibalization of
it was
original series.
almost
Absolutely.
word for
There's
word.
a lot
But,
of them
but
Yeah.
Whedon,
Yeah.
I think Whedon has had more of an influence on the
Film?
popular culture
Right.
science fiction out there than
Oh,
probably
absolutely.
anybody
Absolutely,
in
yeah.
the last 50 years. And I love the guy, so
Oh,
I
yeah,
may
it's
be
absolutely
biased, but.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Turns out some biases are better than others.
Usually it's because I'm right, but
I wasn't gonna go all the way with you, but yeah, some things are better than other things.
What is it, 45 minutes or?
No,
Oh, yeah.
I think we got 5 hours for this panel, don't we?
Yeah, I think we've got all weekend for this one.
yes, so
This is a
theoretically,
marathon.
Marathon panel.
the Netflix of Star Trek panels.
yeah. Well, theoretically, it says 6:30, but it's actually 6:15.
Right, 6:15 with the 15-minute, okay. I just wanna make sure it's one of those things, if you don't want the 5 minutes and you still have things to say.
Yeah.
Where is the future of Star Trek? Is it more movies? Is it more TV series? Is it the fan films?
You know, that's really hard to say right now because the movies have been sort of so, and
Yeah.
and there's so much other competition for the movies.
Michael
And
Dorn.
2016 is the next movie.
About doing something after, when he became ambassador for the Federation for the Klingon. He's been talking about passing the script and trying to get a series with him in it.
yeah.
With him in it.
So it would be kind of a Klingon-based
Yeah,
series?
I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many fan-based Star Trek, I mean,
Yep.
like
Yeah.
Avatar and all the other ones there, and some of them are really, really good.
I mean, television is so brutal these days, though, to get a.
I
to-
would love to see
It's
another
so
television
fractured,
series,
so-
but I don't think it's likely to happen.
Yeah.
Well,
Wait, wasn't CW or somebody talking about picking up a new Star Trek series?
It's
I
been,
read that
it's
at
been
some
thrown
point. It's
around.
been talked
Yeah.
about, right?
It's always been
Yeah.
thrown around.
But is it going to be something, or maybe it'll be something like the live stream, like the Netflix?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's what, right.
You know,
That-
like
Yes.
House
That's-
of Cards
yep,
or
yes.
Alpha House,
Yeah.
one of those sorts of things.
They have done on what the next movie is, because
Yeah,
Into Darkness got pilloried in the press, and some of it deservedly.
Some of it
So if
deservedly,
they don't
yeah.
do, if the next one isn't good, it'll die.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
think so. Well, because
Well,
we've,
They've threatened
Right.
that forever.
Well,
with
It'll
Star
go
Trek
away
movies.
the
for a
movie
while like it
franchise will
did
die.
before.
but there's
or
a
this version of it at least,
Yeah.
yeah.
with Netflix, right?
Yeah.
With the so now that the people that are bringing you your content can create it as well, and there's this pattern for how to do it effectively. There's no reason that if we just can't solve some of these things about like women and sexual orientation and like that America's not the only country on the planet, that we can have Klingon focused things and Romulan, right? There's no reason why a show can't exist on Netflix that is from the Klingon point of view or from the right? Like,
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'd be great, but the media cost be so high, I don't see anybody really doing that.
Yeah, but they're.
The nice thing is you got
Look,
options.
when
Netflix has spent a lot of money on some of their
Yes.
Yeah.
Netflix has spent a
only
lot.
releases. That is, I think, probably the most likely way that we will see like a major,
Right.
big, large budget.
And you also have the
series
Amazon model where
again.
they make a pilot, see how it does.
Does,
you
yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
then
I mean, I
from
saw
there.
the pilot of Amazon's Man in the
They have a
High
bunch of
Castle.
them. Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
good, but I went back and reread the book. It wasn't the book, but it was good. But then it almost never is. I've learned to reconcile myself to that.
When someone, getting back to what you were saying about different characters,
Yeah.
I play STO online, Star Trek Online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have basically broken down the factions, the Romulans. the
Yeah.
Klingons, And they've done a really good storyline. Now, if they could put that on the big screen, that'd be awesome. I mean, that's the thing, like you're saying about budget.
Yeah.
Trying to
Yeah.
break it down, but they've done it very well.
so maybe Blizzard does it.
Or maybe Blizzard hires someone to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying they've got it broken down,
Yeah.
Yeah,
if they put it up on the wall and they've got it all broken down.
Yep.
How many of you know Robert A. Heinlein's work?
yeah.
One of those, you know his process for creating the bulk of his short fiction.
The future.
His future history. He took butcher paper and rolled it down the table. Oh,
Oh,
And you know what is wonderful about this one?
that's amazing.
I love this.
he took butcher paper, rolled it down the table, and wrote 200 years of future history,
Yeah.
and like had 6 different tracks of what's going on here, 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 and
Yeah.
here. So that way, whenever he's like, I need a short story, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
If they've got the butcher paper on
Yeah.
the wall, and
Yeah.
they can find stories,
Yep.
that would be great. That would be a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
That would be.
And
And-
it's always been the fans that have brought it back in the past, and there's no reason that we can't do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's none. In fact, as soon as my wife is ridiculously famous, I'm going to bring back Star Trek.
You're gonna do that remake of BJ and the Bear, aren't you?
I
In
mean,
space.
it's
So what is your wife's name and what she
Yeah, I know, I wanna write this down
Came
too.
back.
What's up?
Doctor Who, when Doctor Who was taken off the air.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
they brought it back.
Yeah.
They did that one shot thing, and then went away for a while, then it came back, and it came back. I think a lot of it has to do with timing.
And it
Yep.
never actually went away completely.
Right.
No.
Because you have the books and you have the radio shows.
Yeah,
and,
radio shows.
and it kept,
30
and-
years, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it kept it alive through
yes.
all of that.
And
Is Doctor Who happy enough for you?
And the fans are.
Is that
The new Doctor
Until
Who?
Moffat it was.
Damn, they keep changing those dumb doctors.
Yeah, I just wrote like a whole thing about this because I have like a hard time
This
like
is my
buying into a
Saturday
whole new like. Actually, so like I have trouble like buying into a new cast and a new crew with Star Trek. So like I go through emotional whiplash every time it's a new Doctor.
Oh my god!
Like every time I just like start to
Who's
like,
in
completely
charge?
love it. Yeah, I'm finally around to the new Doctor. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Okay.
took
Just
the
in time to
whole
change?
Season. Is he changing?
I don't know. How often did they swap us?
Capaldi is, well,
He's gonna stay. Yeah, he's been
another year or
obsessed. Like
so.
his
Yeah, yeah.
dream to play Doctor Who.
There we go.
And
At
that's,
the beginning, he was very dark though. At the beginning.
Yeah.
yeah.
Curmudgeonly man thing that's kind of comical. And
I do. I like him now. Like it took me the whole season to get to like him, and now I really like him.
You're absolutely right. It
So.
takes time to get used to the new people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And honestly, the sad thing about TV today,
you don't have the time.
you don't have time.
Yeah.
If you don't have an
That's so
audience
true.
like that,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
Star Trek The Next Generation was bad until the third season.
Third season.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really
They
came into
didn't
its
know what they
own.
were doing.
Yeah.
They were rehashing
Old
original series episodes. Some of those were done pretty well, and they're worth going back and looking at because they gave you that familiar template to examine these new characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fully functional.
even Joss Whedon has that problem.
Yeah.
Well, then we're just going to have to put The Rock on the bridge and call it a day, right? Because how many franchises has The Rock saved? I mean, G.I. Joe was brought from utter extinction into, right? And the same thing is true with Fast and the Furious. And he kind of he takes a lot of pride in that when he gets that call that he may be brought in to save something that's done. And you talk about, well, you don't have the time. Well, if you bring in a guy like that has so much on-screen credence with human beings, then you can speed up a lot of the, that we've arrived and we already like this guy, so then you just don't screw it up, and I think you can save anything when you get, so maybe.
So Rock is the new Gene Hackman. Because you can watch anything, and Gene Hackman's in a movie, I'm like, okay,
I can watch this.
this is going to be at least passable.
Right.
It'll be interesting on some level.
Yeah.
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 And there are TV series that I start watching because
Somebody.
an actor that
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
was
Oh,
going to be in it.
Castle.
No, and NCIS.
Oh, right? Yes.
David McCallum.
Oh.
Ducky.
Ducky, what did you look like when you were younger, Ducky? Did you
Huh?
Did Sandra just say NCIS because of David McCallum?
Yep.
You may be interested to know that in May, I think it's in May, there's a Man from Uncle movie coming.
Yeah.
And-
Henry
and
Cavill,
Armie Hammer
Archer.
is playing Ilya Kuryakin, and Henry Cavill is playing
Napoleon.
Solo. And I'm watching these guys, and I go, damn, they're both really tall. Armie Hammer's 6'5".
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
Cavill is 6'1", so I went and looked at Robert Vaughn and
Yeah.
David
McCallum,
McCallum, and they
yeah.
were 5'8.5" and 5'7".
Yeah. It was a different generation.
I just thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
And
Trailer
the way
looks
Cavill
pretty
looks at
good.
it, it's just.
I'll look for it, yeah.
Well, right, so speaking of NCIS and,
Yeah.
right, so Scott Bakula,
Yeah.
who wasn't he the Enterprise
He was
captain?
Enterprise captain,
Right,
yeah.
so and he's Quantum Leap, right?
Yeah.
So that's I don't know why, obviously that was a terrible theme song and.
Who have made a career out of the genre.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he's
Oh, yeah.
it's certainly one of
What else
them.
has he done?
Yeah.
Other than Quantum Leap
Maybe
and
he's done other stuff.
Well,
I've
yeah.
never seen him outside of the genre.
And it's one of those things of, Quantum Leap in what, 10 years?
gosh, how
Oh,
long?
gosh.
All right, let me see if I can.
Yeah.
You know, Scott,
Certainly a good long time,
well, yeah,
yeah.
Scott Bakula brought the geek cred.
Yeah.
Yep.
I watched the pilot, I'm like, okay, Scott Bakula is the captain, let's see what they do.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot going on, and having watched all of Enterprise, I'm really glad I did.
Yeah.
Because when it was good, it was great. It was brilliant. When it was bad, wow, was it bad.
I
Did you
actually
still
stopped
enjoy
watching
watching?
about halfway through the third season,
Huh?
I think it was, because I just couldn't.
The
I think there were
Enterprise?
7
I
seasons of
stopped
Enterprise.
watching.
No, it was
No,
4.
It
They,
was
they were
4.
gonna kill it after 3. The fans wrote a bunch of letters and they brought it back
It
for one
was-
more season. Then but they put it.
I stopped watching when they like went off to go find the Zindi, and I was
Yeah.
just like, this is so weird. And
Yeah.
Season 3 was bad.
I stopped
Yeah,
watching
such
after the
like-
board came into it. I said, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I was like, you messed up the timeline, we're done.
But you
Oh,
think that
5
there's stuff
seasons.
worth watching
5?
in those last.
Only 5 seasons of Quantum Leap.
5 of Quantum Leap.
Okay.
No.
It seems like it was on for longer.
I was gonna say
Reruns,
Yeah,
reruns.
reruns.
Well, and then, yeah, it's syndication. Well, that goes back to Star Trek.
Yes.
Syndication saved Star Trek.
It's yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If they
I
hadn't-
didn't see it till the 70s when it was in syndication.
I
exactly.
wasn't born until the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, I watched it in reruns.
Yep.
And that's where that third season,
Yeah.
that third season got enough episodes to make a syndicate package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what sold it. And that's what built everything.
And now it wouldn't. Now you need more than 3 seasons to get
Yeah.
a good
5.
syndication package. You need
To get
100
syndication,
episodes.
yeah.
You know, 100
'Cause
episodes.
I didn't see it. My parents made me go to bed halfway through Star Trek during
Oh,
the original run, so I blame my entire lifestyle on them. Still trying to catch up on that. So I didn't see it. I didn't see the second half of any of the shows until syndication.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Wow.
You should totally write a book on that. Well, my wife, that's every single night. That's what they did is they sat down and they watched Next Generation, and she said after a few seasons, like she could sneak out. Like she would literally get up while Next Generation was on and like sneak out of the house and then come back, right? Come back so, yeah. So
Oh, dear.
the second half of Star Trek, so much of life
Yeah.
takes place.
I recall being like, parents putting me to bed. I hear the theme music for Star Trek: The Next Generation coming on. Get out.
I have 1 hour. I can do anything for an hour.
Of course, back then I think I wasn't able to really call it Star Trek: The Next Generation. I called it Space. But,
Space, yes.
Of course, kind of being exposed to that much Star Trek for basically my whole growing up years.
Yeah.
It kind of changes you, such that like I kind of sense that optimism and that thirst for ideas. Like even when I'm writing things that are nominally genres where they're not that, like zombie apocalypses and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a little more Star Trek than Walking Dead.
Well, and that's what Star Trek did.
Yeah.
It created archetypes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it created an entire genre of archetypes to pick from because they were so familiar. You know, you had the gung-ho captain, you had the stoic science officer, you had the crazy doctor. And they
not
took
only
bits from
archetypes,
everything
but
else.
worldviews.
Yeah.
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 Because I mean, like the way I see the world, like it kind of lines up with Star Trek, and it may not be all that, but
Yeah, yeah.
That's so
yeah.
true.
Which
Yeah.
part of Star Trek?
And it's not
Is
a
it
bad.
Kirk, is it Spock, is it McCoy? They all approach the world
Oh,
differently.
sure.
Yeah.
But there was a
More
modus
that's
vivendi of the.
doing what
there-
you
there
can to
was-
make it better.
There was a
all that kind of thing.
zeitgeist to it all.
And that was exactly it.
And it was the zeitgeist that you catch, that whatever their individual styles were.
Well, and the lack of empire in Star Trek is refreshing.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
what they were always
Well, but
fighting
that was-
against is
right, yeah.
right. So
Like
another
Empire, the
Yeah.
An
Romulan
empire.
Because-
right,
Yeah.
right, and
Because they're a federation.
well, and they were right. So the United
Yeah.
Federation of is it planets?
Planets,
Right,
yeah.
was intentionally named that way because it was supposed to kind of mock the UN and kind of show the UN like this is how you really
This is
do
how
it.
you really do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and thinking about I'm thinking about the season 1 of Enterprise and it's not it is a Romulan.
What?
No, what is Spock?
Vulcan.
It is. The first officer is a Vulcan.
Is a Vulcan, yeah.
And she is very like, well, this has zero chance of, right? But then
Yeah.
you start to see like
Right.
that she buys into the fact that this young
Yes.
hotshot guy think that.
And I think that's
Well,
part of,
and later in I don't remember if it was the first season or the second season, she is brought to task by her superiors
Yeah.
Right,
about
yeah.
about her closeness with the
Yeah.
Enterprise
Yeah.
because she has to
crew.
make
I think
that
that was
You know,
actually my
there-
favorite
decision.
episode of Enterprise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just talk louder.
Supposed to leave the
Louder.
Enterprise to get married
I know,
or
I'm sorry,
something?
there's not like a.
It was a pom thing, and she
Yeah.
got out of it. I don't remember how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the second season. But I mean, I think this is also part of my thing with talking about optimism is
Yeah.
not that there can't be like a lot of that it
Realistic.
can't be that it can't be realistic or a reflection of our society or anything like that. But there has to be like a way out. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I want to believe that a lot of the social tensions that we're going through now have a solution.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
It would be
at
nice
the
if
end
they
of the
did,
day,
yeah.
Like I want to see that there's that way. So and I like when it's messy and complicated and political and everything else, but I like to see that they are kind of figuring it out too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That it's not just a future that's just chaos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just everything
the-
sucks.
Yeah.
the
There's
whole
no
series
way
is-
out. You know?
Genre has
Yeah.
gone in that direction. Neil,
Right.
I think it's Neil Stephenson who has started his own imprint for publishing books that he says harken back to the golden age of science fiction where
Yeah.
technophilia, the idea that technology can lead to positive solutions will be the focus because there's so little being written that results in solutions to societal problems.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think you're right, in general, I think it is out there, but nowhere near like the roads must roll.
I think that
Anybody?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
to me the technology that's going to make it possible to move forward is social media. That in this world you literally can't do something incredibly stupid with anybody else around because if you do,
Everyone
it will be and
everywhere.
so
Yeah.
there's a new kind of
I do all kinds of stupid things. I've got people around me and
Who tell you?
Well, I've done
How
some really.
does that impact Vladimir Putin? I mean, does he care about social media?
Oh, he does. And I guarantee you, if you go to Russia, you don't have the kind of access that we do in America to, right? The state is monitoring things. The same thing is true in China, very much so.
It's really very sad if you think about it, because one of the reasons why so now you're getting my professional geekiness. One of the reasons why the Soviet Union broke so relatively easily and Eastern Europe was able to break away so relatively
Sure.
easily and painlessly is because at that point no one knew how to block the internet.
Sure.
And
Sure.
the internet,
Right.
while the television and the newspapers was all centrally controlled,
Yep.
the internet was
Right.
free, and you could get your message out there, and the people in Moscow could finally hear what was happening the rest of the world.
Yep.
The people here could hear what was happening in Moscow,
Yep.
and that allowed it all to open up. Now they figured out how to block IP addresses.
Well-
So if you're in Moscow, if you're in China, the central authorities know
Sure.
where you're going and keep you from going certain places. Now, there's still ways around it, I
Well,
realize.
but look at the Middle. The
yeah,
Middle East
yeah.
gives us
Yeah.
the possibility that if it happened there, it can. I mean, look at how many regimes were toppled. Like in the last 24 months. I mean, the Middle East looks and now, right? Oil's at $50 a barrel from 116. I mean, the world moves so fast now that I have a lot of. I mean, part of that is because. I know where my wife's going to go with the books, and I have to think that as if you're a writer yourself, that you have the power, right? And then it just takes some guy like me who's going to convince everyone to buy it. And once there's enough Kool-Aid in the water, we might just get something done.
Well, and it's not you telling enough people. It's you telling the 10 people.
Tell the 100 who.
Oh,
Yeah.
And it's that kernel, and that's why, wearing my professional geeky hat, I go to conventions
Yep.
and they give away books.
Yes.
Lots of books. Why? Because the people at this convention are readers.
Yep.
And if I want your book, if my book's on the shelf, the kid finds it. that
Yeah.
somebody will find that book and it'll change their life.
Yep.
A book, Cory Doctorow. I don't know how many of you know Cory Doctorow. If you don't,
Yeah.
you need to. Because he's a thinker. He is applying critical thinking to problems we have in this world. If you haven't read Little Brother and you haven't read Homeland, you really need to.
Okay, Little Brother and Homeland.
Yeah, and Cory
Okay.
Doctorow. Cory Doctorow was on the front lines as the executive director of the Electronic Freedom Foundation. He understands what's that.
Marketing
what-
department has to have a pen.
Yeah. And he knows what's at stake. He gets it, and he's applying some thought to it. He's got a lot of ideas like that. He's got a lot of books like that. He's one of the first people I met who was younger than me, who I wanted to be when I grew up. And I told him that. But yeah,
Yeah.
and there are people out there. John Scalzi is writing great stuff.
Yeah.
Some of it better than others. Some of it's just fun, fluffy stories, and those are great too because they're fun. Not a damn thing wrong with fun. And yes, when I went to see the first Star Trek, the new Star Trek movie, the J.J. Abrams, the Flashpoint movies,
Yeah.
I had fun. And it lasted till about 10 minutes, till my brain started thinking about it, going, God, there are plot holes in this movie you could drive a starship through.
That is also traditional.
And that's when the mirror broke, and I realized what a bad movie it was.
Oh.
No.
Well,
It was still fun. I'm not debating that it was fun. It was a fun ride, and I enjoyed it, and,
If you're willing to turn your brain off and not think about what's
Yeah.
going on.
And frequently with a
Sometimes that's
movie, you
okay.
can't think too hard about it.
but that's where it failed as Star Trek for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Star Trek at its best
Okay.
provokes thought.
Thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If I want a fun ride, that's what Star Wars is for.
Wow. Jeez.
Sorry, Matt.
Wow. I'm gonna need a tissue for. Well, I mean, so I pulled up Catherine Mulgrew, right, who's your homegirl from The Bridge of the Voyager, and when I think about, right, so, and I intentionally said what I did about hating the original series because to me, I found William Shatner, and then I gave the original Star Trek. Original 3 seasons, all the credibility that I gave William Shatner. And to me, then I started reading what Shatner was writing, and I fell in love that way. And so if you look at Shatner, if you look at Jean-Luc Picard, whose real name is Patrick Stewart,
Yeah.
but that's less relevant than Jean-Luc Picard, and right, and Kate Mulgrew, like they matter to the world. Like because Jean-Luc Picard, whose name is Patrick Stewart, also is Charles Xavier, who is right. So, and Shatner, he is 82 years old, and he is just as relevant now as he was in that baby green yellow uniform, right?
I loved how they couldn't decide what color the uniform was.
Right? Like, what is?
Yeah, I don't know if
Well,
most
and they
people
weren't
know
that
this about Kate Mulgrew either, but if you've seen Orange is the New Black, the role of Red was written
Right.
for her. She actually came to them and said, I think this is really great that you're doing this social commentary on this. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And if you read the book, the character that Red's based off of is really not a very big part of the book, of the real events. But Kate Mulgrew actually really cared about being in something that was making a social commentary.
And to me, that says something about Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek that he created, that lived for three seasons. But what he created is what has changed people's lives. Which
Yeah.
I think one of you two said that, and I think it's true that Star Trek has changed people's lives, and it will continue to do. I mean, if we do our job in this room, it will continue to change people's lives.
You little fist pump.
I mean, we're supposed to go another couple of minutes, but I got nothing after that.
After the Kirk summation.
Yes.
Well, there wasn't. Well, there is the Kirk comma, because there's the standard punctuation. There's the Oxford comma. There's the Shatner comma. And there's the Walken comma. They are all quite entertaining. It's an entertaining little meme.
Yeah.
That's all.
Let's combine them all.
Yeah.
But yes, I'd like to thank, as the vice chair, I'd like to thank all of you for coming in on Thursday and coming to a panel. And I'd like to thank the first-time attendees for stepping up and first time here and stepping up and being on the panel and getting involved.
Yeah.
If you want to be involved, there's other ways.
Yeah.
No. But they'll cover all that in opening ceremonies, and
Yeah.
there's also like a handout that they're supposed to have at the front door.
Did you get, did you get the
On
newbie one?
I'm new.
The
What the
newbie
heck
one?
do I do
Yes.
for 4 days?
Yes.
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 The newbie thing.
The newbie ribbon,
The newbie
and the,
ribbon.
yeah, yep, yeah, good information. Even as the veterans, flipping through the, hey, you might not know everything you think you know about fandom. But anyway, well, thank you all for coming out for
Thank
the
you for coming.
obligatory Star Trek panel.
Thank you, thank you. So what is your wife's name and what has she written?
So her name is Rachel E. Kelly, and